The sponsor has been identified, but unlike most television programs, the performer hasn't been provided with a script. As a matter of fact, I have been permitted to choose my own words and discuss my own ideas regarding the choice that we faced.
Welcome to the Open Train of Thought podcast. I'm Sam Blue Sr. Thank you for joining us for real conversations, real perspective with real people. This podcast is a place for open dialogue on the issues that impact our communities, culture, education, politics, and future. We believe that understanding begins with listening, even when those opinions are different. So sit back, get comfortable, and help me in welcoming tonight's special guest, Dr. Yacara Mungo, an administrator, educator, researcher, a thought leader with an intense passion for public policy, education, and community engagement. She joins us to share her perspective on some of today's most debated issues. Please join me again in welcoming Dr. Yacara Mungo to the Open Train of Thought podcast.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great.
I know your time is really important. So I appreciate you sharing your time with us. And before we get started and play our disclaimer, I wanted to just see if you wanted to take a minute just to, tell the viewers about yourself.
Of course. So my name is Dr. Yacara Mungo. I am born and raised in Charlotte, still currently there. Um, and I've been an educator pretty much my entire career. That was the first time out of school. I am a former homeschool mom, turned into a founder of a micro school, a private school. And of course, with that, I became more of an advocate for freedom of education and just teaching the parents, they have various options. And I'm glad to be here today just to share my opinions and my thoughts on the various things that we have going on that is definitely affecting our society.
Okay, I really appreciate that. And before we go a little further, because we are going to be talking, giving our own opinions about some policies, possibly, and some other things that may, deal with general statute. I just want to play our disclaimer.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Views expressed are those of the host and guest and do not represent any organizations. Discussions on politics, policies, and current events are based on opinions and available information, which may change. This podcast does not provide professional advice, so listeners should research and verify information independently. Host and guests are not liable for any decisions or outcomes based on the content.
All right, so we are going to dig right in. And the first thing that we want to talk about is the dilution of the Black vote. A lot of people talk about it. Some people, it's a lot of information out there, but I think having your perspective, because you have a real thorough background, higher education, you've dealt with both, a lot with the community, but I think you do a lot of community outreach, and I feel you're empowering the youth to kind of build their own, be self-sustaining. And I feel that's really important. But what I wanted to ask you is Black political influence changing? And how do you feel, I would say in the last 20 years, how that has gone, and if we have lost that, if the Black vote power has gotten stronger or the same?
I believe, or I kind of see it as the political influence has grown in visibility per se. But not actually in the power. We see more of us in these positions, but when it comes to the final decision making, I have not seen as strong as an influence that I feel like it should be. Like specifically, like here in my area in Charlotte, we have the west side of Charlotte, which used to be a very thriving Black part of Charlotte. It has been going downhill. And you constantly hear them saying, oh, we're going to have these meetings. Hey, we're going to push this money out for people to push businesses and things like that. And we have other Black people in the community that are stepping up to lead it, and it still hasn't gone anywhere. We hear a lot of talk. We see a lot of people running around as if they're putting out the work. But then the final conclusion, or at the end of the day, a lot of change and impact that impacts us isn't taking place.
Yeah. Okay, I definitely agree with you. And I think when we look at the past 20 years, I kind of feel like I don't think we have grown stronger. I believe we have grown stagnant. In saying stagnant, I mean it's easier to pacify us. Rather than actually doing action is more about symbolism. And I'll use the last governor as an example of what I think. When he ran for re-election, it was kind of tight, but he promised to have a task force for reparations. And he promised that he was on his campaign trail doing that for his re-election. And once he got re-elected, the 7 people that was on that committee end up just they turned in their paper, their organizations got a little check, and that was it. So I think the symbolism of hearing, oh, we're going to get reparations, like California did it. When all those Black folks in California came out within 6 months with the dollar amount, this amount will be tax-free. Like they had it right there. The governor got the Black caucus to vote against it. But that's what he ran for, to be elected for re-election, and that's what got him re-elected. So I just think I'm not going to say we've gotten weaker or stronger. I think we've just become stagnant. What do you think?
In a way, I can agree that I can see the stagnation and the pacifying. They give us just enough to make us happy, right? To simmer down, and then that's just what it is. There's no more movement after that. So yeah, I can I can see that. You pretty much, I feel like you're saying what I just said it in a short matter. We get to having the meetings, and hey, these are the plans, and this is what we're gonna do, and this is the budget. Then nothing happens after that. Yeah.
And so with saying that, what has the biggest impact on Black political influence today? Is it voter turnout, redistricting, population changes, party loyalty, or something else?
I'm gonna say voter turnout and the redistricting, because party loyalty, I feel like a lot of our Black communities, they've been with that certain party that they've been with for years, and they haven't really moved around much. But voter turnout, some years we've had wonderful turnout. We even had the youth, once they became of age, to be able to go and vote. But then now, if you do go out into the community, I've heard a lot of the youth, because that's what is making up our community now. They somehow they don't feel that them showing up and turning out and voting will make a difference. But then you do have the redistricting going on out in the community, which is, for one, confusing a lot of people. They're confusing a lot of people. And I'm going to say a lot of us, if it's too much work for us to figure out who's now serving our area and where we need to go now to vote, because they, change what we're supposed to be doing. And this area is now district, so and so. We like, okay, forget about it. And I've heard this. This is feedback I've heard directly in the community. So I think those two together is on kind of move ahead of the others, So.
And I also think that, to me, complication means deception. So to me, it seems like most politicians, especially if they have like different aspirations, like they can care
Mhm.
less about their constituents. They just know that they can get unlimited money, unlimited access to insider trading for stocks. If they get on a certain financial board or a committee, and they have to actually pass those laws that dictate interest rates for Visa, MasterCard,
Mhm.
American Express. So, you'll see them dropping stock, selling stock, and a lot of them won't report it for a whole year, and then they'll get penalized. The penalty is just $100. So somebody cannot report $300,000, and their only penalty is $100. To me, it should be a percentage of that amount. It should
Yep.
be 7%. If we talk about taxing, making everybody pay their fair share, if a congressperson or a senator makes $3 million, they should have to pay taxes on that, because we all know that they use the committee meetings. They know.
Yep.
So I think that for me, the biggest impact on the black politics is basically party loyalty. Um, I'm a type of person. Me, my wife, our family, we're unaffiliated, and people are like, "Well, you're independent." I'm like, "No, we're unaffiliated." And they're like, "Well, why aren't you a part of like Republican, Democrat, or Independent?" I said, "Because for my whole life, I was Democrat until uh 2012. I was always Democrat no matter what. But then after I started switching it up, Clinton, Clinton, Bush, Clinton,
Mhm.
Obama, Romney, Tulsi Gabbard, I started to switch around on who I would select, because I started paying attention more to policies. But the one the one
Yep.
thing that I found out was the last election, I was polled 13 times.
Mhm.
Now, my whole life, I had never been polled. Never. Nobody ever called and said, "What are you looking for?" Or like, I was on 3 panels. I was on Senator Dan Blue's panel, his town hall, Cheryl
Wow.
Beasley. I was on
Mhm.
hers. And I was like, now my voice is no longer a whisper, it's a shout.
Mhm.
So that's why I kind of promote, especially the black community, to become unaffiliated. Because if you are registered independent, they still can pull your voting records.
Mhm.
But if you're unaffiliated, you're kind of like in a gray area. So I get a whole lot more phone calls because of that.
Mhm.
So that's how I feel my voice is heard. So what are your thoughts on that party
So
affiliation?
I have been independent. I didn't make that decision, of course, until later in life, because similar to you, majority of my family growing up, we were Democrats. But
Mhm.
when I became of age and started paying more attention, which actually was when I was in college, that's when Obama was running. Because
Mhm.
Biden came to our school, like it was a whole
Mhm.
bunch going on. And because I was a part of the Democratic Party at that time at the school, and but when I started paying attention as years started changing, I'm like, what what they have going on isn't working for me.
Mhm.
What I have going on with the vision I had for things I would like to happen. So I did become an independent, but I started more so voting for what I felt worked within my
Mhm.
community. Especially when it came to our local votes, it might have always been a straight Democrat ticket. I was jumping around based off of what, again, going to the city council meetings, showing up at
Right.
the community organization meetings, now learning, okay, well, what are they saying they're going to push, or what are you going to be able to do in my community? Because that
Yeah.
sticking to that one party, as I saw, wasn't working, because the impact that I saw was needed was not coming from just them alone. Um
Mhm.
And I do say a lot of us, we need to be educated, pay more attention, and not just with, well, that's what we've been doing all these years, because that you do here. That's what we've been doing all these years. And then it's like they forget there's other parties. They think it's
Mhm.
just those two parties. It's not, it's more than those two parties. And we need to learn to go do our own research, which has been an issue with us for generations, not going to go find information out on our own, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And I definitely agree with that. And that's the reason why I feel party loyalty is the biggest issue, because there are people in families like will disown. Like there's some of my family members that don't talk to me, and I can care less. All I care is about the
Hmm.
well-being of my family and those I care about.
Hmm.
And I also understand that everybody doesn't know what's necessarily best for them.
Right.
But I know the amount of researching, going to the General Assembly, going to city council meetings, interpreting. Um, my wife used to always get on me about watching C-SPAN like all throughout the day. So when people see this snippet, I was like, yeah, I watched all 3 hours. I saw them going back and forth, debating on why something should be in the bill or something shouldn't.
Hmm.
So I'm kind of like Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant said, if the game's on the line, he's not passing the ball, because he knows that nobody else on that court has put in more time than him putting up shots, to win games. And to
Hmm.
me, you need to show me that you're a good researcher, you're non-biased in your research, and you actually study the policies, not just, oh, I'm going to vote on affordable housing that they put on the 2022 ballot for North Carolina.
Hmm.
But then when I looked at the budget, it had $0 for advertising. So if you're not advertising, that tells me you're not going to do it.
Right.
You just want that money to sit in that account for 3 years, and then you can reallocate it to something else.
Hmm.
So that's one of the things. Um, so should Black voters continue supporting one political party by large margins, or would greater political independence increase the influence?
I believe greater independence will. So that comes to us now, again, paying attention to what the policies are, right? Um, and then we might have a influx of votes on a certain party. That's when that'll come in. But I really
Mhm.
think um, they need to pay more attention to the policies and what is really affecting the community, and not just sticking to that one party, regardless of what they have
Mhm.
going on. We have to change that mindset.
Okay. So, moving into that, when we talk about dilution of the Black vote, there's been something called birth tourism. And there's at certain points, like I remember, like back when I was in the Army, we would watch CNN a lot, and we saw like different stories.
Hmm.
But then now the same people on CNN is saying like that's not really an issue. So what I want to do is just share this video, and we'll watch it. It's about 2.5 minutes, and we'll talk about it. And I have a few questions for you after that.
Okay.
Federal officers streamed into more than a dozen apartments on the hunt for evidence. It's their biggest crackdown so far against so-called maternity tourism, package deals for pregnant Chinese women so they can give birth to American babies. That's not illegal. Making false visa claims is.
These people were told to lie, how to lie, so that their motives for coming to the U.S. wouldn't be questioned.
In the fancy palm-lined suburbs on the edge of LA County, a local lawyer has been leading the search for maternity hotels.
This is one here that has been reported in a formal complaint to the City Council. They're essentially maternity motels where they rent out 3 to 4 rooms in the home to pregnant women that are coming from China and giving birth to get the dual citizenship.
And there's a few in this just one little estate here.
Yeah, 3 and just a couple of yards from one another.
We knocked at one of the places she identified. Hello, sir. Hi there. The residents didn't want to go on camera, but confirmed friends had come, paid to stay here, and had their babies in order to get an American passport. Neighbours noticed many different pregnant women staying in one house.
And what I've kind of seen is that they're just here for a brief time till they have children, and then they leave, and then within the same day, other families will move in. So I think they're circumventing our legal process to become citizens and to use some of the benefits this country provides. So I don't think it's right.
And this building is often the first port of call. Every week, dozens of Chinese women with newborn babies come here to get American passports for their children. Few families wanted to be identified, but said their motivation was China's one-child policy.
I want to here to deliver the baby because in China don't allow to have second baby. The U.S. passport is not important.
Others admitted the lure of citizenship was strong. Having an American passport, she said, he can make his own choice in the future about where and how to live when he's an adult.
Okay, I ended that a little early because I think what we played it kind of like gave the gist of where I feel, the discussion should go.
Mhm.
So when you see that, and I'm pretty sure you have heard of birth tourism before.
Yeah.
And we just had, I think last week, the Supreme Court had basically said that it doesn't matter if your parents are here illegal or legal. If they cross over the border and have that baby is a U.S. citizen.
Mhm.
So they get all the rights, Social Security, passport,
That's the
everything.
14th Amendment. Yep. Mhm.
And well, the thing when it comes to the one thing that I saw that two of the conservative justices sided with the liberal justices. But the one thing that I've never seen a Supreme Court justice do is vote for something and then write a dissent against it. And the two Supreme Court justices that voted with, I think, Kavanaugh and what was the other one? They both wrote dissents. And the one thing that they said, the reason why they did that was because they said that they didn't agree with birthright citizenship as it is as the video that we saw.
Mhm.
But what they said was that it needs to be changed in the Constitution
Mhm.
and or through amendments. But they didn't agree with it because they feel that that's what's draining our Social Security, the Medicaid, everything is going. And when we saw those, the Chinese woman was speaking, soon as they get that stuff, their child is raised in China,
Mhm.
they literally can file for absentee ballots. They can file for for anything, like any resources, public housing, college, all of that stuff. So what do you think about the video?
Well, for one, when I first heard about it, it's been a while. You know how you hear stuff, and you're like, what? They doing what? And it came because it was just the ladies' discussion. We started seeing more advertisements for I lost my word. Who my word is out my mind. The ladies who carry surrogates. We started seeing a
Yeah.
whole lot of uh advertisements for surrogates. And so the conversation went from, I wonder if people are coming here to do that. And then we got into birth tourism because another lady mentioned, she said, well, they're coming over here just to have their baby. You can rent a house out, da, 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 da. So
Mhm.
now I went and researched it. I haven't seen that video, but I went and looked it up, and thinking of that and seeing that how easy it is to gain citizenship here, which you constantly hear. I know it'd be hard for them to really vote against it and change it because of the 14th Amendment. What they probably should do, because for one, I don't really agree on it because it is straining the resources we have for the people that are living here and are citizens. They might have to do a better approach at um the visa applications and the fraud and things like that. The information that they're providing on coming into the country, they have to do a better job at going through all of that, the compliance with that, I think, because they're not, it's going to be hard to kind of change that again with that amendment. I mean, with the 14th Amendment that we have in place.
Mhm.
Should
Well,
legal use of existing, it is, I think it is illegal use using the laws that we have in our country, because that was definitely
mhm.
a loophole to say all I need to do is go over there and have a baby, because we can't really do that anywhere else.
Yeah,
I have to go be create a business or provide some type of economic, um if I go over there to Africa, so it's like you can't really we can't really go do that anywhere else as much either.
mhm. Yeah, I feel that it's definitely been exploited, but my look on the 14th Amendment is I don't think it applies now because to me the 14th Amendment was for black descendants of slaves.
Was.
Yeah, it was. But the thing is like somebody said, well, there's no difference. And I said, yes, there is. Slaves were forced to come here to this land. They didn't voluntarily come. They were forced. And I said, the people that are now getting it, they wasn't forced. They came here willingly to find a better life, to but kind of like to just take a shortcut. And our neighborhood is really diverse. We have Indians, Africans, Mexicans, Europeans. Like it's a real diverse neighborhood. And when I see like some of my neighbors, like they go through the process to get citizenship, like they get a
Hmm.
job so they can show that they're contributing to like the tax system. They're learning English and they're doing all this work. And when I've spoken to some of them, they're like, they don't believe in birthright citizenship because they're like, I had to work to get
To
citizenship.
stay here. Right.
And my neighbor was like, it makes my citizenship seem small now because so many, they're like just handing it out, and I think that's something that I look at it as I felt like, you know, black folks got taught into giving up something else. We're being diluted.
Hmm.
We the 14th Amendment to me was ours. We had claim on it, and now because it was brought up, now it's no longer ours. So that's something else taken from us.
Yep.
What do you think?
That's why I say was. It was
Mhm.
intended for us, That's why it was established. But I mean, I take it as they put it out there and that's how it is. I feel like once the loophole was seen, it was now work smart and not hard.
Yeah.
They did their research to find what laws could they use to gain their citizenship versus going through all the other
Mm.
processes that they had in place, which was a smart move. Now, do I agree with it? No, because again, like I said, we can't go do this anywhere else, and we're already straining the resources we have for the citizens that are here,
Mm.
right? But I know that amendment they put in place, and it's not still there just for the historical context. It's for anybody that it can apply to now. And that's just that's just what it is at this point.
Yeah.
They will have to go do a whole nother vote on that. And how that'll go. Again, that'll come these votes from those people who don't even live here anymore. They will be using those um,
Yeah.
um, absentee ballot,
Yeah.
votes to vote against it. So it's like, how are we going to fight against it? What
Against
could
those.
possibly change? For one, that 14th Amendment that is being used to
Mhm.
uphold birthrights, more so to uphold birthright citizenship, because that's going to be a long process. And the reason, and they knew they couldn't vote against it. And I just say this is just my opinion, because they was going to open up a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, I think I kind of like agree. Like everybody I was speaking to for the last 6 months was saying like it's gonna be upheld because of um adapting like today, just today's times, I guess. But I feel that if they've taken that, what I heard them doing now is, now if you're pregnant, if you come to the border, you're turned away. It don't matter what, you're turned away. They're basically going to back when they did when immigrants was first coming through Ellis Isle. And if you were a woman and you were pregnant, you wasn't married or anything, but if you was pregnant, if you was sick, they take your temperature, all those things, you were turned away. Because birthright citizenship. So they were like, turning people away. The only women that was pregnant that got through were women that had like good reading skills. They could contribute to the U.S. society.
We don't need no more contribution to.
Oh yeah, I mean that's how I look. Like take care of black folks.
We don't need
first.
nobody else to contribute nothing.
Yeah, so I think that has changed, but now I think last month they broke up like 300 of those birth tourism places in California alone. They're up in Michigan. I think they've shut down like 60 buildings that was doing birth tourism. And when they was interviewing one lady, she said she paid about $40,000. And they keep her she comes like before a 6-month period. But basically she does a 6-month visa. She'll say that she's leaving, but they stay at that hotel or in that house and have their baby. And then once they apply, then they go back to China, or then they go back to Europe or Russia or wherever they came from. And there's so many, I think they said there's over 1 million absentee ballots that are sent to China every election, because they're citizens.
Yeah.
So you have 1 million people strong. So I tell people like, they show up, they vote. The only way they get us out the vote is if they get us emotional. They gaslight us with something. And when I say gaslight, I'm just talking about, when that preacher is finishing that sermon, he start hooting, okay, it's time to get up out. So everybody starts standing up, clapping, so I just think that, from what you're saying, I feel you don't agree with birth tourism. And unfortunately it was taken, but I think they are gonna do something to like not necessarily change the 14th Amendment, but they're gonna do more enforcement to keep people out. What do you think?
That's what I was saying. That's what they're gonna have to do. They're gonna have to update some type of processes, enforce where the visa enforcement needs to be stricter. Definitely. They're gonna have to increase those rules, those regulations, because I think that's about the only option that they're gonna have to be able to put some type of handle on that.
Okay. Well, I think we talked about that some, and would you agree that that's part of working hand in hand in diluting the black vote?
Not really, I wouldn't say, because it's not, it still isn't, I wouldn't say directly increasing our numbers that we have to be able to vote. Just because they have these additional numbers out there is still not doing anything about the black citizens that are here that can vote. They just need to pay more attention to what they're voting about and what they're voting for, and go and vote. go and show up as they would. I really just think that's more so of our issue. Like you said, they have to get us emotional to really do something. In that case, we need to be emotional all the time about everything. Hey, that mindset of don't let them play with us. We need to pay more attention all the time. It still doesn't change who we have over here. I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's the power of true boycotting. I tell people now the boycotts that are done now, that's just games. But I said, when you look back to the bus boycott where it lasted 18 months, Black folks, they organized. You had people carpooling, getting people to where they needed to be, and they shut it down for 18 months.
I think
Here,
we're so used to being the convenience. We don't want to be inconvenienced no more, so we can't
yeah, I mean,
stick to
kind of spoiled.
it.
Yeah, I think we're kind of spoiled, and I think
Yeah.
that we, to me, just because somebody is famous saying something, that doesn't make me listen to them more. So when I see like a lot of famous people endorsing politicians, I don't look at that as anything because they don't live in the real world. Somebody that has a net worth of $30 million or $100 million,
You're not in my tax bracket or in
they
my
don't know what
neighborhood.
it's like to go to the gas tank and gas is high.
Right.
They probably have a truck come to their house and like DJ Khaled. He has
The
a
drive.
truck that comes and fills his car up at his house.
Right.
So I don't, I just feel like we're relying too much on the entertainers and when they
What
don't
looks
live in the
good.
real world.
Right.
But
Right.
I think that we're going with that. I think it goes into our next topic that I wanted to talk to you about, the public versus private schools. And before we do that, I wanted to play something from your organization, your school,
Okay.
just so people can kind of get a grasp of what you guys doing.
Okay.
Welcome to STEAM Wednesday at Enlightened Legacy Microschool Academy, where learning grows from the ground up. Each week, our students explore science, technology, engineering, art, and math through hands-on agriculture and environmental learning. We begin right here at our Elma School Garden, our living classroom. Students tend to their garden beds by watering, weeding, and observing how plants grow. Older students collect data and chart progress, while younger learners explore the textures, colors, and smells of nature. Next, we prepare our grow boxes for seedlings. Students layer cardboard sticks, peat moss, and nutrient-rich soil to create healthy foundations for plants. They also help set up fodder systems growing sprouted feed for our farm animals. Through these projects, students learn how sustainability connects people, plants, and animals. Some Wednesdays, we take our learning out into the community by visiting nearby gardens. These visits allow our students to meet local growers, see creative gardening methods, and understand how teamwork helps communities thrive. The highlight of STEAM Wednesday is our visit to the Mungo Tribe Family Farm, proud sponsor of Elma's Agriculture Education Program. Here, students connect directly with the land and animals, helping in the garden, feeding goats and chickens, and learning to care for horses like Eclipse. These hands-on experiences teach responsibility, empathy, and respect for living things. At Elma, we believe true learning happens when children's hands and hearts are in the work. Through STEAM Wednesdays, our students don't just learn about science and sustainability, they live it. Every seed planted and every animal cared for helps grow creativity, confidence, and character. Because at Enlightened Legacy Microschool Academy, we're not just growing gardens, we're growing future innovators and leaders.
That was amazing. That to me, I consider that empowerment. When
Yes.
I hear people talking about we need to stand up, we need to do what we need to do, and I'm like, do you grow your own food?
hmm
So how can you do a uprising and you can't even take care of yourself? Do you go to the shooting range? Are you proficient? Like it's all those things that you have to be. To me, I want you to kind of like talk about, what your what was in your heart for you to start, to kick everything off with Helma.
Right, right. So, as I said at the beginning, I'm actually a former homeschool mom. So, starting off with my oldest, I had always already made a decision that I wasn't sending her to public school just because I didn't agree with the views and how things went with public school. So, of course, I'm not going to send my child somewhere where I'm gonna constantly complain. I'm gonna try to find another solution. So I also explored charter school. I actually explored another private school, and then that just didn't meet what I wanted. Moved to a charter school. I was all right with it, but it still wasn't what I wanted. I sat one day and was just thinking, like, well, what I'm gonna do? Well, I'm an educator already. And in my mind, I started remembering when my dad used to tell me, what you gonna do when you have kids? You're gonna educate them, because I always been in the education field working at other programs. And at that time I did have an in-home daycare.
Mm.
Um, so from there, I decided to just take my daughter out and I started homeschooling her. Did my research, started meeting other families that was in Charlotte, part of the homeschool network.
Mm.
And from there, I started building my own curriculum, what I wanted her to learn, how I wanted her to learn based off her needs. And when COVID came around, my daycare expanded into like a tutoring and part-time school because we had students out of school.
Mhm.
Parents didn't know what to do with the children. So I had to open up a session for my school agers, started bringing them in. From there, I had a few parents that were saying, why you just want to start a private school? You just need to start a private school. In my mind, I thought it had to be this big, extravagant building. And
Mhm.
after a while, with me still doing the homeschooling with my oldest at the time, I don't have to start that way. I can start with what I see fit, right? With what I already
Mhm.
was doing. I did my research. I saw what I needed to do to start a private school. I also learned about the opportunity scholarships that the families could use to make private school affordable for them. And then from there, I just started growing out my private school side. Um, and as the years went on, I started learning about educational hubs, micro schools, and things like that across other
Mm.
areas in other states. And I just made my final decision that I wanted to make it into a micro school because I wanted to keep it small. We have small learning environments for the students. We right now we started ushering in therapeutic learning spaces where children can be screened. I know a lot of parents didn't understand how their children were learning. They
Mhm.
thought they had some type of disability or just wasn't it, because actually that's what they were being told from other schools. So I started paying attention to the need of the parents, the families, the students that I was serving. And so just moving on, we started
Mhm.
expanding more, reaching more families, teaching them that they had an option. They could do their own research to see what works for their children. And then also getting them to understand that kids need um some type of social and emotional guidance too, because dealing with COVID, coming out of COVID, a lot of kids was affected, definitely socially,
Mhm.
emotionally, cognitively. They was everywhere.
Mhm.
So just building off of that, we got into agricultural too, because my oldest, she was kind of the streamline of everything I started putting together, because she's
Mhm.
17. This is her second year in college. She was an early graduate. She's an animal science major, so she's now in college. But she's interested in animals and agriculture. We started getting into that, learning how to grow food, something I took from my granddad. I introduced it into the school.
Mm.
We had the farm to preschool initiatives that North Carolina has. And I started
Mhm.
looking into other things. So now we teach agriculture. They get to deal with farm animals. I mean, and then even our older kids, we have a program for them, middle and high schoolers. They start getting into a trade of interest. I push
Mhm.
college, but I also push entrepreneurial trade work. Just
Mhm.
kind of meeting the students where they are, from infants all the way to 12th grade. We've built our own learning community. So you know how they say, build it and they will come. And then also I've found my like-minded families that our model fits.
Oh yeah, that's amazing. Like I said, when I first saw the videos, and I didn't even show the one about them preparing to, for ballots and
Yes.
running, like that is like so amazing. And I'm probably gonna share that also on the channel, just if you're fine with that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
me, that's more about what our kids need now. Like, I tell people this sand and stone are made out the same material.
Hmm.
But when water comes, the stone will still stand, but the sand will break down. So I tell parents all the time, do you want your child to have a foundation of sand or do you want them to have a foundation of stone?
Right.
So I think what you guys are doing is really good, but I just had a couple of questions for you, when it
Hmm.
pertaining to that. So if you had the complete freedom to choose, where would you send your child today? Public school, private school, charter school, or just homeschool, and why?
Right now, it would be a homeschool still, only because I know I still have the complete freedom um, to allow my child to learn the best way that they learn.
Mhm.
Or if in the course with being a homeschooler, we have hubs. We can do part-time at other different programs, but I would still choose homeschool. That's what worked best for me. That with me being a homeschool parent and seeing what I could do with the first child I had, because I had three
Mm,
kids, I amazed myself with seeing my dedication and really paying attention and using my resources, what I could support my child to becoming and get
mm,
her to in life already. So I would definitely say homeschool. And of course, you have to have that time and be able to do that. I know that model doesn't fit for every parent. And that was another reason why I decided to do what I did. Because a lot of parents, it's like, I can't, my life isn't set up where I can do that. And I get it, so.
mhm. So I was just reading through some stats for North Carolina, and I saw that in the last 2 years, 12,000 students have gone from public school to private, charter, and homeschool.
Hmm.
And what would you for you hearing those numbers, 12,000, I think it equated to like $93 million in attendance funding because every student gets a certain, that public school system gets a certain
Hmm.
amount of money. I had Dr. McCrae on here, our very first episode, and she was saying for North Carolina, it's about 13,000 per student.
Hmm.
So that 12,000 equated to a loss from the public school of 93,000. So what would you say is the single biggest challenge facing American education today? Student discipline, parent involvement, curriculum, teacher shortages, funding, or something else?
Um, I'm going to say something else, but the teacher shortage, the parent involvement, and the curriculum, and of course, student discipline is all together is one of the main reasons because they have the funding, right? And
Mhm,
I only say that because with the public schools, they're receiving about $13,000 per kid. Private school, if they do scholarship alone, is only receiving about $9,000 per child. But they're able to provide more resources and more services, but less funding. And I know this, of course, because with my school, we're a nonprofit and we only take the scholarships funds from the parents, right, to make it affordable.
mhm,
But we're able to provide the small class sizes, additional resources like therapy, learning spaces, additional assessment, screenings, diagnosis, like all of that, all the way, even tutoring in after school, right?
mhm,
So I just feel that the the public model, right? Because they have certain curriculums and restrictions that they have to stay set to, I
mhm,
think all of that together without the funding is one of the main reasons because a lot of the parents leave because the class sizes are too big. I know one family, no, three families I had to leave one of the schools. She told me it was 30 kids in a first grade class
Oh,
with one
wow.
teacher, and they might have had an assistant, probably, right? They might have had an assistant. If they're receiving that much funds for the students, why can't they pay the teachers to get the training they need, because the public schools are able to contract and get agreements with outside training resources to come in and help our
Mhm.
staff. Why can't they do that? When it comes to discipline, a lot of it is the students crying out for help. I only say that again because I've had kids with some serious behavioral issues, but we hopped on it from working with the family, getting into therapy, you know, knowing each child don't learn the same way. So just seeing what works best for them and just taking the time to do what we need. So I really think that the public school system have became really more of that, just the institution, and we're just working off of like
Mm.
robots now and not really taking the time to work with the families, work with the students, really look at the curriculum and see what's working, because I think the public schools should have various curriculums that could be used, right? And not just
Mhm.
that one line, that few that they have, because certain curriculums don't work at all of the schools in all of the areas. And they
Mhm.
and they know
Yep.
that. Standardized testing, you look at those stats. A lot of the students are failing, right?
Yeah.
At what point in time have they stopped to say, well, maybe these kids just have test anxiety, or they don't do good with testing? Let's find some other methods. That's why I decided to do project-based learning, because if they can regurgitate and present to me in a model that they understand the information, I feel like they've learned it. They might
Mm.
not do good sitting there looking and just trying to answer A, B, C, or D, but we still do the standardized testing, but now they have more assistance. So, we can keep those stats because that's what we still have to do. So again, I don't think it's funding. I definitely know it's the teacher shortage because they don't have that real commitment of educators anymore
Mm.
as they used to have back in the day. Parent involvement, most definitely, because a lot of parents are absentee.
Mm.
You don't hear nothing from them. Those curriculums are not working for all of those students. And student discipline, you know, they need more. They definitely need to usher back in some emotional learning development curriculums to work with the students. What about the thought of that? Bringing that back in there, that can cut down on some of those discipline issues.
Mhm. Yeah, I think people are tired of their child not learning. That's the reason why 12,000 students have left. And I think it's going to continue. That's why I'm a supporter of school choice. Because to me, school choice, well, to me, the private schools was a way of segregation because
Hmm.
you had to be a certain class to be able to afford to pay for a private school. And I can use a situation from the old governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper. He did a 2-minute commercial on the foundation of public schools, on how they're like a mainstay of the community. They're the foundation of the community. But then
Hmm.
his kids, his daughters went to St. Mary's, which is about 54,000 a year. And that's K through 12 is 54,000 a year. And they went through there for K through 12. Son went to Ravenscroft, which is on the low end. K through 5 is about 22,000. But
Hmm.
then when you go to what they call the upper school, 6 through 12, it's 42,000 a year.
Hmm.
So how can you advocate for something that you've never used? You're talking about how it's the mainstay and the foundation of the community, but yet you didn't send your kids there. Like our son, he went to public school,
Hmm.
but we were definitely involved. Like I remember when he first went to ninth grade, he came home and he had something on his schedule. It said healthy living.
Hmm.
And I looked at the NCAA accredited courses and it wasn't on there. And he was like, "Well, Dad, they said I have to take it." I said, "No." I said, "You go back to that guidance counselor tomorrow and tell them to take this off and give you something that's NCAA accredited,
Hmm.
or I'm gonna be there." He came back with that schedule change. Because to me, healthy living is a class they just give the coaches.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
to be a coach, you're supposed to be a teacher at the school. So they
Yep.
give them like this easy class. Not
Hmm.
all coaches, some.
Just some.
So
Yep, yep, yep.
I told, we told our son, you're not gonna waste time in school. It's gonna count. Like, you're gonna take Spanish 1, 2, 3, and 4. You're gonna keep
Right.
taking all these maths. And I think it showed because I remember when we did a visit to Georgetown, they looked at his schedule, they looked at his GPA, they looked at his SATs, and they were like, I think Georgetown was like 66,000 a year.
Hmm.
They were like, we'll give him an academic scholarship but we'll give him like 64,000. So me and my wife, we're like, shoot, we just got to pay 2,000 for a Georgetown education. They only have a 12% acceptance rate,
Hmm.
but there was another young man that was there and he had a 4.0 and they turned him down because he didn't have any AP classes, he didn't have any honors classes, and basically what they wanted was someone that pushes themselves,
Hmm.
not to just be normal. And for me, our son did well in public school, but if money was no problem, oh, he would have been at Ravenscroft. He would, because when you see that money, everybody that I know that their child went to Ravenscroft, they know economics, they write in cursive, they can read the Bill of Rights, they can read the Constitution, they can tell time on the clock. I showed my wife a video today of this guy showing like an analog clock to to all these kids, and out of 30, maybe 5 knew how to read the clock.
The clock.
And I think it's just bad,
Hmm.
so I support school choice because I feel that, back in the days, it was mostly white folks that was able to afford to send their kids to private school and learn economics, where in public school, economics is an elective.
Hmm.
Certain things are electives, when private school is kind of like
It
mandatory.
was mandatory, yeah. Because I'm a private school kid. I started out in private school and then my
Mhm,
parents transitioned me into public school. And I was way ahead. I remember
mhm,
they took me out and sent me to a public elementary school, sent me back because I'm in class telling the teacher, that's not right. I already had learned,
mm,
I already learned that. That's not how that go. So with myself knowing the decisions my parents made, what they were able to do for me, again, that was one of the when I started having children, it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna pay more attention to where I decide to send when I started out my oldest, where I decide to send her, what I'm going to do. And
mm,
just again, remember what my dad said in my head, what decision you gonna make with educating your children? And he used to push on me, are you gonna allow people that, and I don't know why he used to holler this, but now I get it. He was like, are you gonna allow people that don't even look like her to try to tell her about her history and teach her what you think she needs to
mm,
know? And I started thinking about that. I said, you know what, you kind of right. Because in my area at the time, unless I drove all the way somewhere else across town, like I was already doing with that private school, with that charter school, she wasn't going to get that. She
mhm,
wasn't going to get that. So, like, even our students in our school now, they can read an analog clock. Some of them, in the way we do grade levels, they might be on they grade level for one of the subjects, but I guarantee you, each of my students are on a higher grade level for like a math or a language because we meet them where they are and we continue to challenge them. And we
yeah,
do foreign language, we do music, cursive writing, that's no longer in school. We don't do a lot of technology, but they're able to do it to work on their projects. But we do a lot of handwriting. If you look at now elementary students, some of the middle schoolers, their penmanship is terrible.
high school is terrible, like,
And it's this penmanship. And I've constantly, like, if somebody look at my Facebook page, a few times I kept posting about penmanship is directly linked to how your brain functions. I need for
mm,
you guys to get back to writing things down because that is directly linked to how your brain functions. But it's
mm,
again with education, I think it's gone specifically in public school to what is possibly convenient and the bare minimum. Because when I was in public school for high school, our guidance counselors brought us in. Where do you know where you want to go? What do you want to do? Okay, let's look at the classes that you're taking. Is this going to work for where you want to go? We had that. A lot of the high schoolers that I'm dealing with now, they haven't even had those conversations. They don't even know what the next step is, what classes they should be taking. And so that's how I know they've started talking about diluting. They have started diluting public schools, specifically in certain areas, I know. Because again, if I go to the other side of town, it's totally different. They have all the open positions in school field, the guidance counselor, the therapist, the nurse, like the support staff, everybody, their positions are full and they're getting what they need. But in other certain communities, which is mainly who I try to push to because I want them to understand they can make a decision. Public school isn't the end all be all. Let's try it out. Let's see if it works for your students. And they have. I have parents that drive almost coming from the South Carolina border that comes to me. When they kids started coming and they started seeing how they could excel and how they started gaining their love of learning. That discipline, that the children behavior a lot of times come because they're not interested in learning. They're not, but they should be paying attention and changing the classroom environment and how they're teaching, but that's not what's happening. So
Yeah, there's a school, I believe it's in Atlanta. It's a white guy. He started the school in Atlanta. And I believe it's a charter school. And they have one of the highest graduation rates, college acceptance rates. And he used to be on TikTok. He was dancing. He was doing the Dougie. He was like with the kids. They was doing like skits and stuff. And the kids were just so excited. Like some of the parents they interviewed said, my child wakes me up in the morning to make sure that they're on the way to school. And right now, I think it's one of those things that everybody I speak to that takes a child out of public school is that they feel their child isn't learning. They're starting to hear, and I'm talking about K through 5. There's one guy, he has a daughter, and he's put her into private school because she was talking about gender and stuff like that. He's like, I just need you to know your numbers, your math, your reading, and your science. He's like, I don't need you to learn anything else. That's what you're going to school for. So I think sometimes the system, and I think when you talked about the money, because North Carolina has the money, but I think
they have the money.
I think the teachers union suck up a lot of that money. Because I don't feel teachers union should be mandatory for public school. It should be voluntary that you pay into it if you want to. But I think they're talking about the dues are going up to like $800 a year or something. And teachers, North Carolina, to me, teachers should be, I don't feel any teacher that has been teaching 10 to 12 years should be making less than $90K a year.
I don't
To
think so
me, it
either.
should be kind of like the military scale. When you've been in a certain amount of time, you get certain degrees and stuff. Like you should have a certain level of pay. But then when you try to incentivize the teachers and say, hey, the more kids that pass your tests, you'll get a bonus. But you look at what happened in Detroit, all the kids was passing. But then when they did their EOGs, they had like 100% fail rate because all the teachers were doing was going over the test and getting the kids to memorize the test. So when the proctor came in, they're like, man, these kids are finishing. They had like 2 hours and they're finishing in like 50 minutes because they was teaching them the answers. So that was a big scandal that was in Detroit. And I think also COVID has a whole lot to do with that because a lot of people was walking in the room while the kids on the computer, in that virtual class, and they're the parents are looking at the screen and kids is knocked out, mouth hanging open.
Well, the teachers weren't equipped to do virtual learning.
It was
21st
forced.
century learning. They were not right, and they weren't equipped. They didn't even quite understand how to really run,
Mhm.
online learning for those students to keep them engaged. I saw it. I was sitting on there watching some of it, and I'm like, well, it makes sense. The teachers are struggling
Mhm.
and the students are struggling. You know.
Yeah, I think that right there, those parents that started the homeschooling during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
they was like, now they're conditioned. I can do this now, and my child is doing so much better. And then you had, um, I remember me and my wife would go out to lunch, and there's a one of the parks here in Raleigh, and we would go out there, and next thing I know, I see all these white kids coming out of nowhere, and it's during COVID.
Yep.
They're having recess. Like, they're making sure their kids are interacting.
Getting out.
No
Yep.
mask on, they can see smiles, they can see emotions, they can see, like, that hurt the Black community the worst. Out of
Mm-hmm.
all the statistics, we were hit because we let all these folks tell us what to do with our kids,
Yep.
and we were content with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I like school choice. And I do want to ask you, so the way school choice is, North Carolina just they just overrode the governor, the
Mm-hmm.
veto, because I think there was 2 Congress people that was in Charlotte, House members, and because they got voted out, they're like, shoot, well, we're gonna show up, but we're not gonna vote.
Yep.
So the GOP overrode like 4 of the bills that the governor vetoed. One was about immigration, working with
Yep.
ICE. One was
Mm-hmm.
about the school choice, because even though it was approved federally, the state assembly and general assembly has to approve it and put in, into regular general
Into play.
statute.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
now I think once those funds start being allocated to follow, because one of the questions I was going to ask you is, should education funding follow the student instead of the school district?
I
And
think it should follow the student.
I'm an advocate. Some people are against that, I think, because they have friends that are teachers and stuff. And North Carolina had that last year, the $35 million shortfall from
Mm-hmm.
Department of Education. But I think that's a sign for teachers or school systems and districts to step their game up.
Yeah.
Start
Yep.
teaching, because you're
Start
having
teaching.
kids in 2026 graduate from high school and they can't read. You look at Baltimore, Maryland, which they spend the most per student out of all the country,
Mm-hmm.
and they have the worst fail rate, like less than 8%
Because it's like,
of
who's
their
getting
students.
paid?
Yeah, so and
Who's
they get
getting
most
paid?
funding.
Where's
So
the money
that's
going?
what Yeah, so I feel like it should, and to me, because I felt like private schools was segregation,
Mm-hmm.
now that money can basically, like, help, that family get them, get them to that better education. Just like people say
Mm-hmm.
healthcare is a human right, to me, a good education is a right.
Yes. Yes, it is. It is. And I definitely agree with that. I think it should follow the student. It definitely should follow the student because, for instance, CMS, certain schools, I hate to say,
Mhm.
because it's attendance based. They still claiming kids are there and they know they're gone. They've
Yeah.
transitioned out. They've moved out of the school already, but you're still claiming attendance to claim funds when these are funds that could have been followed that student wherever else they decided to go. Right.
Mhm.
So again, I feel like our families, they need to be educated on, I have a choice. With
Mhm.
the charter schools are usually they have some type of specialization, whether it's a STEM or arts. Some of them have a specialization. Look into those options. I know some of the public schools were set up like that. Um, but now that I look at them, I don't know how much of a good effect they've still had on the community because you still have
Mhm.
students that are being pulled, that the parents aren't satisfied, the students aren't learning, um, and they're trying to figure out something else because they don't know what to do now at this point. I know
Yeah.
I was in another conversation where we were going back and forth, and it was a big debate on should the funding be increased on the side for the private side? Should they increase the amount that they were providing in the opportunity scholarship budget and the
Mm.
ESA funds and things like that? And I know me and one guy got into it because he was like, well, if the private schools want all the money, they need to be able to, what they going to do about the students that have the IEPs and I said, well, we have ESA funds. That's one thing a lot of people didn't even know. There's
Mm.
a side that's ESA that provides additional fundings for families to be able to go get additional tutoring, after school programs, additional materials, supporting programs for their child.
Mm.
Because a lot of times, again, the public school system isn't quite providing all of that for them. They're just sticking them in one classroom with all the other
Yeah.
kids that might have IEPs, and they're not doing much of anything. They can
Yeah.
still learn.
Oh,
You still have
definitely.
to provide them some type of curriculum and activities, right? And they weren't doing that. And so that's why I was like, it's important again that a lot of people educate themselves on what my options are. Where can I go to get the funding to
Mm.
help me decide if I want to do private? And then you can shop around, check out the schools, see which one is in your budget to be able to afford. Like, of course, like one of mine, we've priced our school, and of course, because we're nonprofit, so we get sponsors and donations that help to offset those
Mhm.
things. We accept what the scholarship provides. We just ask the parents if you can afford that application fee. That also helps get all the students materials.
Mhm.
Public school, they get all the money and they still want you to buy over half the supplies that's sitting in the
Oh yeah,
classroom. They come with
they
this
send home that list on
long
day one.
list. Yes, we don't do that. Their application fee, their resource fee goes into their student supplies for the entire year. We just ask them, get the book bags. We even started finding wholesale discounts for uniforms to the
Mhm.
shirts about $3 now. We work to make education affordable for those families so it won't be as hard. Because one thing is, how you said some of those families that could afford it, we want it to be affordable for them. We want them to be able
Mm.
to have that experience and for their children to be in a learning environment to learn as much as they can learn.
Okay. Yeah, that was definitely a lot that you shared from is your program and just your experience. And I definitely want to thank you for, joining us this evening.
Thank
And
you.
I'm not sure how the weather it is, but it was throwing down here earlier. So I was hoping that the power didn't pop out.
Yeah.
But I definitely appreciate you sharing, your insight on those things and just your perspective and point of view. I do want to let the viewers know or anyone watching that um, she wasn't speaking on. Neither one of us was speaking on behalf of a specific organization. It was our own personal opinion.
Yes.
But I really appreciate everybody. Make sure you please subscribe and just share and allow us to continue to grow and just spread the word. And I just want to thank y'all. And next week, we're going to be talking to Janisha McCoy. And she is a young 20-something owner operator, has her own tractor trailer. And she's going to be talking about what got her into trucking and why she feels that a lot of sisters aren't getting into trucking. It is growing, but it's less than 3% of the industry, and they make really, really good money. So that's who we're gonna have on next week. I want to make sure everybody is safe this weekend. Um, stay cool because it's supposed to be hot and wet. But I'll see you guys next week, and thanks for joining an Open Train of Thought.
All right. Have a good one.